You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box, where we dive into the things that matter the most in our everyday lives. We are not afraid to tackle the toughest questions, so ask away. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we'll be tackling a subject that can be challenging for many of us. The subject is making friends as an adult. Remember when making friends was easy as sharing lunch in the high school or college or, cafeteria? It was easier. But it changes as we grow older. Life gets busier, our social circles can shrink, but it doesn't mean that it's too late to build meaningful connections. In this episode, we'll share why making friends as an adult can be tough, and we'll also share practical tips for expanding your social network. Today, I have with me Kelly King, who is a fellow therapist at Therapy Utah. She's an LCSW and also a dear friend. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Super happy to be here.
So tell me, why can friendships feel so hard, especially as we get older?
I think even just to think about that question, right? There's already this thought that, maybe we're fused with or really connected to that it is harder, right? We've got some idea in our mind, like it used to be easier. I used to be better at it, or I did it more frequently, and now it's hard. And so I think it's even just important to look at, many adults are coming into friendships or wanting new friendships already with that thought. It's hard. I'm not good at it. I'm not sure how to do it. I'm feeling unsure of myself. And depending on how true that thought feels, that can color, our confidence going in or the experience that we anticipate having even before we try. So I just think it's important to get clear on how do we think about making friends as adults? What are already the preconceived ideas that might be coloring our experience?
So I may be coming into this friendship, like having a preconceived notion that this is going to be really hard and that I maybe am not good at making friends. And you're suggesting that actually might play a really important role in our ability to make friends.
Yes. Yeah. How we think about it already will predispose, our level of confidence or predispose what we're going to anticipate. If we anticipate something's going to be hard, then we're going to be more likely to be alert and aware of those aspects of it that are hard. Whereas if we anticipate it being easy, we will look for those things about it.
That makes so much sense. The narrative in our head, right? The thoughts around it really determine our reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So today we have a listener who was talking about this exact thing, and I'll go ahead and read her question. And I'd love, Kelly, your insights on that. Here's the question. Hi there. I love the podcast and wanted to reach out with something that's been on my mind. I'm finding it harder to make new friends as I get older, and I'm starting to feel a bit lonely. I have a few close friends, but I really want to expand my social circle and meet new people. Do you have any advice how to make new friends as an adult, especially when it feels like everyone already has their groups? Thanks so much. I really appreciate that question because it feels really vulnerable. Yeah, I'm an adult and people have their groups and it still feels uncomfortable. So tell me your thoughts. What comes to mind for you?
It's such a great question. And I always think it's interesting that how many people are feeling this way? How many people in our own circles, right, are wanting more connection, wanting to have a newness of friendship, and yet it's not like we raise our hands and express that to anyone. And so we're all walking around maybe craving that increased connection, but it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to say it. We don't just run out to the neighbor's house and knock on the door and say, hey, do you want to come play? Because there's all these social rules now. We don't want to appear needy. That's not usually praised or esteemed in our culture. We're worried about maybe being the needy friend. And so I think there's a lot of factors there. So I absolutely love the question. And I think there's a lot of ways to approach it. And probably people can think of joining clubs or making community or putting yourself out there in places where you can meet new people. But I think there's some basic things that we can do because some of us maybe want more connection and we're not extroverted. We don't want to maybe join the PTA, or we don't have time in our schedules always to join a book club. And I think there's some really powerful tools that we can use. It's just a way to live that can increase connection and really allow for friendships to develop where maybe we didn't expect. And one just is the idea of practice, being a friend or making connections wherever you're at. And sometimes I have to push myself with this. So I was recently at, it was a bridal shower, and for a person that I knew well, but a lot of the people that were there, I didn't know at all. And they probably won't cross my path again, to be honest. But because I care about making connection, maybe not in that environment, like I'm going to be best friends with someone at the bridal shower, but I want to practice my skills. And I am introverted, and sometimes it's hard to push myself. One thing that helps is I just always make it about the other person.
You are introverted. Are you serious?
Totally.
See, that actually surprises me about you, Kelly. I would not have anticipated you saying that.
Yeah, I am. I prefer to be at home, and I'm not an extrovert by any stretch.
Okay. So you're at this bridal shower, and you're like, here I am as an introvert at this bridal shower, but I care about making connections.
That's right.
What does that look like?
So I turned to the person next to me, and I like to practice the skills of connection, because whether I use it at that bridal shower or use it professionally or use it wherever I am, practicing those frequently helps make me a better friend. Right. And it attunes me to other people. So I just turned to the person next to me and introduced myself. Right. And we just had a conversation. And within 5 minutes, I knew a lot of interesting things about her, and she knew a few things about me. So this idea of when we want to expand our friendship circle, that we can practice wherever we're at, like just the daily opportunities that present themselves to you, is a little less daunting than I have to go join the PTA or have to participate in the city council.
I love that idea that wherever we're at, we're looking for connection, right? And interestingly enough, as you said, you're an introvert, but you chose to turn to the person next to you who was probably feeling the same thing. Like, here I am sitting here, and I might not know, any of these people, but you asked a question and introduced yourself. It's amazing how quickly that can form a connection of two people that were sitting next to each other feeling alone, all of a sudden feel a lot less alone. So I like that. So the mindset of, I want to form connections wherever I'm at. I may not need to go to join the PTA or some big community event, but I'm just going to form connections wherever I'm at. And this is interesting. Again, when you said you're an introvert, that surprises me. And I think that's why, because I see you engaging with people and asking questions and connecting. But it sounds like you're really deliberate about that in your effort to connect.
Yeah. And it feels vulnerable to me. And that's what I would say to someone. It's like, as human beings, we connect in vulnerability. Right. And so if we can remember that, if we want to expand, I love this question because, she talks about wanting to expand her social circle, like that expansiveness. We want to, at all stages of our life, grow, experience new, right? Develop and create. And so the idea of creating new friendships is part of that spirit of expansion, right? And we crave that as human beings. And so I don't remember where I started with that, but just this idea of being, part of how we're going to connect with other people is being vulnerable, and the other person will feel that and receive that. So that's how we can know if we're on the right track, is making new friends will feel vulnerable.
And you're saying, and that vulnerability and that discomfort makes you know, okay, we're on the right track. We're going the right direction. Yep. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. One of the things you said is growing and expanding. I also think that lends itself to knowing that, friendships evolve and change over time. So all of us, the last 3 years, have had a lot of change in our lives. And, it sometimes is difficult to go, okay, I may not be in the same friendship space that I was a year or two ago, or, and having some awareness of that friendships are dynamic. They change. They don't just stay stagnant, and that we're okay with that change. Do you think is that part of this for this listener, that recognizing that maybe she's in a different space, maybe things have changed for her, and it's important to recognize that there's a dynamic, that shifting of dynamic can also change friendships as well?
I think that's very accurate. I think across our lifespan, our friendships change. And sometimes we grieve that we're not as close maybe to someone, as we were. I know that's happened to me. I'm like, I liked it when our kids were in the same age, or our husbands were connected in this way. And so naturally we were connected, and now that's shifted, and I miss that closeness. And I think it's okay to be sad about that. And it's also okay to welcome in new friendships. And we don't have capacity as human beings to maintain close friendships with ultra numbers of people. It's just not possible. And so I think that's what you're saying is absolutely true.
Yeah. And to recognize, okay, what is my friendship need, right? Some people may, one close friend might be kind of what works for a person, right? But some people might need a bigger circle and awareness of that and saying, okay, what are my needs in terms of where I'm at in my life right now? What you just said is interesting. I do think that there are certain places that bring us together, right? Like I remember when I had little kids, it was like, I would go to play dates and we'd meet at the zoo and the aquarium. And as my kids have gotten older, I'm not doing that. I'm not meeting friends in that way anymore. And so it certainly has changed the way that I engage with my friends that I've met as when my kids were younger. And so will you talk a little bit about that? Like as we change in the lifespan and our needs change, how do we adapt to that?
I think that's a good question. To me, it points us to knowing ourselves, which is a lifelong process, right? As I shift, as I grow, as I mature, as I learn to know my preferences better, as I become more authentic, and maybe have a stronger sense of self, I need friends in different ways, right? And I enjoy the company of certain people more than others. And that's okay. I think that's good. I think that's part of a pattern of life. But so much of it is about knowing yourself and really maybe coming home to yourself. I think when I was younger, I needed friends more to kind of structure me because maybe I got my sense of worth or my identity more through my friends. And the older I get, that's less of a need now, right? As I've learned to come into myself and know who I am. And now I enjoy friends for different reasons. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but that's what came to me.
I actually love that idea that coming to know yourself helps you to know what type of friends and maybe the amount of friends you need and what a real meaningful friendship might look like to you. So that's a really helpful way to understand that. And when we come to know ourselves, like you said, I'm an introvert. I know that about myself. And it's not something you're like, I'm panicking. I've got to do something different and this isn't working. No, this is who I am. It's okay. This is who I am. And this is what I do to make, to learn and connect with people at parties. It makes sense. So tell me, is there anything else as you're thinking about our listener question where you feel like are some practical tips that might help her make some friends?
I think just staying curious and staying open-minded. We are wounded in relationships of all kinds. It's just the nature of being connected human beings, but we are also healed in relationships. And there are a lot of different relationships that can provide reparative experiences for us, where maybe we've been wounded previously. Our nervous system has some data about who is or who isn't a safe person, or it's okay or not okay to take a risk here. And when we enter new relationships, we have a chance to have a corrective experience that can really give the nervous system some new data. And we can't know where that's going to come. And that's, why staying curious and practicing those connection skills wherever you're at, being open to all kinds of relationships, at the same time being choosy about the relationships that are energy giving rather than energy draining. I think those both need to exist, right? We can be open and curious and accepting and also choosy. To me, that's a good way to go about, considering the people that you want around you.
That's such a good way of thinking about it, is curious, open and curious, and also choosy, right? Like we're choosy about where we're spending our time and our energy. And one thing you said that really resonated is this person giving energy to me or draining energy from me? I mean, that's a great indicator to go, is this friendship really helping me and making me a better person? I mean, it's the same principle and the same concept I talked to my kids about just a couple of nights ago. We were talking about friendships and we were saying, the 5 people you surround yourself with most are who are most influential in your life. And it made me really think like, well, I can actually look at myself in the mirror and ask myself that same question. Are the people that I'm around the most, do they help me become the best version of myself? Do they help me become who I want to be? And in fact, am I doing that same thing to them? I mean, you can ask the same thing in reverse. Am I that friend to people? Do I add energy? Right? If we're looking for friendships, I have to ask myself that same question. If I'm having a hard time with friends, well, am I an energy sucker or am I actually adding to somebody's cup? Am I adding energy to them?
Yeah, that's so true. And I really think, 2 more practical tips that I I think are really important in this area are, one, I would be very intentional about, we all have different levels of social circles, like our close friends, and then going out acquaintances and going out maybe just people we recognize. Identifying some people in those circles that you want to deepen that connection with. I would make a list. We all have, if I asked someone that, who's someone you'd like to get to know more, you would have 2 or 3 specific people come to your mind. There's something about their energy, something about being around them that you're curious about or drawn to. Identify those people, right? And then just also, once you've identified that, just identify, ways that you could make that happen in normal and natural ways. I think the easier it is, the more we can just work it into everyday life, the more likely we're able to stretch ourselves to do that. We don't do well with the whole to-do list of, I have to go out and make friends and find new ways to do things. Just identify those people that you want to get to know better.
I love that. That sounds, I hear that and I think deliberate. That's what it sounds like to me. Be deliberate in this. Like, this is an effort you're making, be deliberate. What would you say are some normal and natural ways you could go about doing this?
Once you have your people identified, and maybe you don't, not that you have to do that. I think that's a good way to do it. But just take a step forward, right, into vulnerability. It's just simple things, finding how you're connected to them. Saying hi. Sometimes not sometimes, all the time, when I'm in a public place, I make a deliberate attempt to smile or catch the eye of people that I pass. I just think as a human being on this planet, that's a nice way to live. And I want to add to the safety of other people. And so when I make direct eye contact and smile, to me, that's a way of doing that. And I think it's such a simple way to do it, or to look for an into a conversation, even with strangers or people that we just interact with. There's just so many ways that we can do that, simply. Yes, that makes so much sense and feels really like a tangible, easy way to make friends and just to make, and again, where it starts is just making connections. And I see you, you see me, and what you're saying that matters to me. And I'm willing to be vulnerable with you, even if it feels a little uncomfortable, because this is what matters. This is what connects us to each other. So yeah, it's really about being a creator in your life, and really thinking friendships are something that I create, right? I put in time and effort. I shape them. I think about them. I'm intentional with them. There's an amazing book that I love. It's by Dr. Hendrickson. It's called How to Be Yourself. I just love the title, but it's a great listen, actually. But she talks in there about, this is for all kinds of people, like some people that may be a little more introverted, some people that actually have diagnosed social anxiety, but it's just a really simple guide of how the more authentic we are, when we can quiet that inner critic, when we can show up just me, just you, that is what people are craving. That is the gift we bring to our friendships. And that creates a safety in another person to also allow them to bring that kind of authenticity to us. And so really, I think that's the best tip, is that settle into yourself, take a deep breath, and be sure and confident in the gift that you are. And that's what other people want you to give them. It's so true. Be sure and confident in the gift that you are. That's beautiful. Such a great reminder. Kelly, I want to make sure we covered everything. Is there anything that I didn't ask or that you wanted to make sure to say before we wrap up? I think just one thing would be just, many people do struggle with actually, diagnosable social anxiety, and there is so much help for that. That is not a life sentence. I would just encourage people, if you experience a lot of anxiety or you feel like unsure of how to really step forward in this area, I would love for people to get some help with that, because it will change your life. All the research shows that when we are socially connected, we have better mental, emotional, and physical health. Like, there's a ton of research on that. So really, this idea of you don't have to do it alone. There is help. You can be coached through this and learn some skills to get better in this, to have a growth mindset about it. That's excellent advice, Kelly. We really hope this discussion has shed some light on the times in our lives that can be challenging when it comes to friends and adult relationships, and hope that some of these tips and tricks that Kelly has, tricks are probably the wrong word, tips that Kelly's given us will shed some light and give you some guidance as to making deeper and more meaningful connections in your life. Kelly, really appreciate your time and your insights around the complexities of relationships, and hope that we've also made it seem a little simpler, made it seem like there's some real easy steps that we can take
to deepen our relationships and our connection. We appreciate you listening. If you like, share, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time.